What we're going to do now is create a simple function that uses our timer, the cycle timer that we've created, to decide whether or not the feet should be updated or just stay as they are in the world space that they're in. So currently, all the feet are locked to their world transform and they don't move at all. So when you simulate and move the character, because these transforms are locked in place, the character doesn't actually move. Even though the actor is moved over here, the character model is still in the same place because it's solving to reach all of these points with its legs. So what we're going to do is make it so that intermittently, based on the cycle, sometimes they will stay locked as they are, and other times they will be able to move freely, so the character will actually move. So to do that, what we're going to do is go back to the control rig, and we're going to create a new function, and I'm going to call this MoveFeetTransforms, and compile and save, and separate out the entry and return nodes. So what we want to do is we want to loop through all of the feet. So we get the foot names array, drag in a reference to the foot names array and do get foot names, and then drag out from the array output and do each, so for each. Connect this up to the execution path, and then the return should be connected to the completed on the for each, because if it's connected this way, it will return every time one of these feet is passed through during this for each loop. But we only want it to return once when it's completed. So hook up completed to the return node. So what we're going to do first within the actual loop is we're going to save this index so that we can reference it later. So this is going to be the foot index. So as it loops through all of these, this index represents how far through this array we are. So the first value will be 0, then it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, for a total of 6 different indexes. So from 0 to 5, which is a total of 6. And the way we're going to save this is just for temporary use within this one function. So instead of creating a regular variable, which is accessible anywhere, we're going to scroll down and you'll see a section called local variables. Local variables only operate and are only accessible within the one function where they're created. So they will also always reset back to default when the function is run, and they will be back to the default values, and then they will update as you use them, and then they're not accessible anywhere else. So for example, if we had another function or if we're in the rig graph, we can't actually access those local variables anymore. So within the MoveFeetTransforms function, scroll to the bottom, and under local variables, we're going to create a new local variable, and we're going to set this to an integer, and we're going to call this foot index. And what we're going to do with this local variable is drag in the foot index and choose set foot index. And from this execution path in the for each loop, we're going to connect up to the set foot index, and the index is going to be plugged into the value. So now we have a reference to the foot index. So if we drag this in, we'll be able to use it wherever we need to. And as well as saving the foot index for later use, I'm also going to save the element. And this element is going to be the actual name of the bone. So as it loops through all of the bonds, the index will be the number that it is in the array, and the element will actually be the text such as front R end. So again, we're going to create another local variable, and we're going to set this to a name, and I'm going to rename this to foot name, and compile and save. Drag in foot name, do set foot name, connect it to the execution path, and the element is going to be plugged into the value. So now we have stored local copies of the foot index and the foot name to use.